we will have questions now, but since we're filming this, first of all, some people have reservations that they don't want to be posted on YouTube. So if you don't want your question to be posted on YouTube, please state so before you tell your question. And second of all, Ann-Magrit Austenå needs to go soon, so please, questions for her first.
You say that you tell the political cases, but do you have any kind of like this is the amount that has the same answer? Have you made any statistic and also pointed out these lines for them, made it written?
We do to some extent sum up, but statistics has been an area where we have not given, NOAS has not given priority, but with during 2010 we had a doubling of the numbers of cases we got to our office, and that numbers continued through 2011. So we have seen that we now, since fall 2011, try to have a better structure within our office so that we can draw statistics from it. So far we have been depending on the different caseworkers in NOAS making up their own notes and registers from the different cases they work with, and they distribute countries and areas in between them so that they try to specialize in areas and draw experience from that. But that's one of the many things that we would like to have more money for, to have set up a better data system with a better way to extract statistics.
Could it be an idea to cooperate, for example, with a university or others that are specialized in this field? And so that you get this cooperation with somebody else that can help you. The
difficulty is all the personal information in the different cases. So how to collect data is strictly regulated, and it's very difficult. We are just now considering helping master student doing searches. She tries to do a study on how UDI and the appeals board deals with the term the children's altså tilknytning til riket, their connection to Norway, how that is dealt with in different cases. But this kind of information is personal information which the use of and the way that we can store that kind of information and gather that information is it's very complicated, and Datatilsynet have strict rules for that, so that makes it difficult.
Yeah, but I think that if you ask the persons that you help in the case, they can allow it. They can say it's okay that a person is going into this and make this statistics. So they can make a written agreement to do, I think. And also, I think it's very important to take out some of the answers that is really, really bad from UDI, like this woman that was raped by the government people, and that they said that, and I think also tortured, and then it was not so bad for her to return because maybe it didn't happen again. I mean, these stories must go out to the public.
First of all, I'd like to thank the panel for your contributions this morning. And I don't know if there are any questions, but I have 3 comments, and that might actually initiate some exchange here. On Sunday, the new bishop in Borg, Atle Sommerfeld, spoke at the concert in support of the Family Dag. And he used a term which, at least for me, was new, and I want to repeat it here. He said that 10 years of working for Family Dag showed that there was a need for tålmodig engagement og tålmodig solidaritet. And to you, Kari, I think that's a good point. I mean, this is really a test of wills and a test of patience and not throwing in the towel. And I think that was very appropriately said by him. When I hear Norsk Folkehjelp talk about the history and where they're operating abroad, it occurs to me that in this country, which I'm obviously not from my accent, in this country the discussion is often about migration out. And I wonder, where is the voice of migration in? Where are the Hungarians who came in the 50s, the Chileans who came in the 70s, the Vietnamese who came in the 60s? Where is the mobilization of the voice of the people who actually have benefited from the asylum practice in Norway? And can't they be encouraged to speak up for what it was like and what a difference it's made? And could one introduce 10 years to get settled and then give a contribution back to the generation coming up behind you in terms of helping them integrate? I think that's a voice I have yet to hear, and I'd be very curious to hear whether they're interested or whether they're just getting on with their lives, and this is a history of their parents or grandparents. The whole point of putting people into camps, I think it's undercommunicated how that does pacify people and what the result of that is. I mean, it directly works against integration, and the cases that I've been involved with in previous jobs, where people have actually been out in the community and maybe deported after 7 or 8 years, they've left with their dignity, they've left with some capital, and they've done some amazing things when they've gotten back home. One of my former clients opened a children's home in Africa, named after the Crown Princess, because she had been active in the work that we've been doing while he was still here in the country. And I think there are shining examples of people who, at the end, do actually go back with a straightened back and their head held high. And the final thing is, it's always very difficult to bring examples from the US into a Norwegian or European debate. But occasionally there are things that happen in the States that make me stop and wonder, God, if they can do this in Alabama, if they can do this in Nebraska, they sure as hell have to do it here in Norway. And that's a health issue. Today's New York Times reports that the legislation in the state of Nebraska overturned the governor's veto of health rights for pregnant women. And the argument is a typical American one. You have to sort of put yourself in the American context. But they were able to argue that there was no sense discussing the mother's legal rights to be in the United States of America or the state of Nebraska, because the fetus had rights to health. Now, the whole discussion about abortion and choice, free choice in the United States is very different from the European one, but I'm reminded and still troubled by the fact that a Palestinian family was deported within the last 10 days, and that at the time of the arrest, the mother miscarried. As a health personnel, I mean, the shame I feel about how a system has treated that family doesn't need to be expressed here, but it really should make us stop and think. I mean, and Nebraska, one of the arguments from the governor was, we'll be the only state in the Midwest, the 6 neighboring states do not offer health care to women who are carrying children. Everyone's going to come here, the magnet effect, the old magnet effect argument. And the legislature still said, but there's more important principles at stake here. And we have to stop and we have to think about that. Whether or not that can be translated, I don't know, but I found that an eye-opener. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for Ann-Magrit before she leaves, if you have the time. And I want to put attention to another very serious issue as well. That is what you were talking about, the asylum interview by UD. And as we had understood during these lectures, there's serious problems with it. And since NOAS has the responsibility, as we have understood, to give the information about the interview to the asylum seeker in the asylum centers. That's why it's important to ask you about this. So what we learn and know is that the asylum seeker really don't have any legal assistance in the asylum interview. There is no psychologist, there's no really testing of the person's mental health or capability of even being in the situation, maybe being traumatized, not being able to actually go through such an interview. And how is it possible for NOAS to really take this responsibility on, giving this information, still knowing that it's so much out of control, and knowing, as we do, that this is really basic for the whole continuation of the case of the asylum seeker, and that has that outcome that we all know about. And I think that this is really something to be addressed really loudly, both to the public and, of course, as an organization to the governments. And I guess maybe you do, but I would like to hear what you are doing with it and what you think about it.
What we do inform the asylum seekers of is what they are facing, what will happen, what are their rights, and what will the situation be, and what will they be experiencing in the. We are not. There's a lot of things that we would have liked to see better with the system and more resources, but that doesn't help the asylum seekers to talk to them about what should have been there. We have to prepare them for what is there, and then warn when we see the need for it. If we experience through our meetings and guidance talks with them, that there are special needs, there are special vulnerable persons, special vulnerabilities within a family, or things that we sort of either get flat in the face, or we have a feeling that there is something here. So that we have to warn, we can warn health responsibles about that here is a family with special needs, or there is a person with special needs, and considerations has to be made. But that's why we made the report Facts on the Table, Fakta på bordet, which has been supported by similar reports within the EU and also from, on the Norwegian side, Institute for Samfunnsforskning, about how little consideration, how little screening there are before the interview to make sure that people either they are vulnerable because of health situation, or they are in a vulnerable state at the time they arrive in the country and are to have their interviews. So that's what I just have one short comment before I go about. It was mentioned about the use of systematic rape, or the discussion of whether this is true or not in some cases. For instance, when it comes to Ethiopian women, this has been an issue also. That's partly the reason why NOAS has had 3 people in Ethiopia now the last 2 weeks, and they are making a report about the knowledge they now have, the new land information they bring back home when they come home this weekend, and we hopefully will have this report out by the end of May. So that's a contribution to the general discussion about what is the new return agreement between Norway and Ethiopia, and what are the actual facts about the country and the system that they are returned back to.
I just want to say one thing, that UDI has a breakfast seminar about the asylum interview. Oh yeah. UDI has a breakfast seminar about the asylum interview the 6th of June. And of course there are limited spaces for people, but they don't have the sign up page yet. But I will tell you when I will look for it, okay? You have to be there. Thank you.
More questions?
I can do a comment.
Okay.
So you can think about more questions while I talk a little bit. I just want to pick up the gentleman in the back. I think your idea was brilliant about engaging the early immigrants arriving in Norway, the Hungarians, the Vietnamese, and other groups, and engaging them into the solidarity work that we do or other organizations do, and being patient with us, like you mentioned, for tålmodig solidarity, to keep up, to keep up the work and keep up the pressure. And we need to engage more groups into this work to be able to reach some success. And of course, we have never heard these groups before on these issues. At least I have not. I only read books about them, I never seen by Norwegian scientists. It's been made books about them, but I've never seen themselves coming from with the story. For this, I just want to mention one thing that Ann-Magrit talked about, and which was your question, because we have been for a reception, for like a screening, psychiatrical and medical screening in the first transit, which we run, the Refstad transit in Oslo, because now these days they only basically are being checked up for tuberculosis, but we would like a further screening, both in terms of documenting human treatment, torture and so on, which is relevant for their asylum case, apparently, but also when it comes to which asylum center they should be moved to, because too often we end up with asylum seekers from vulnerable groups who have special needs coming to some reception centers which are very remote, to say the least. When they have put up an agreement with the local municipality, I mean, they're often like a 50% doctor or something, which is basically have a general medical background, and very seldom there are specialists, being involved in the analysis and in the treatment of the asylum seekers. That's a very important issue that we try to raise as often as we can. But in both ways, yeah, both in terms of the case and in terms of the living and the housing afterwards. When it comes to Ethiopia, can I mention that as well? And the return agreement with Ethiopia. Norwegian People's Aid have not spoke much publicly about that agreement for a good reason. And the good reason you will find in that we have an office in Addis Ababa. And if you think about it, you will probably understand what I'm trying to say to you without saying anything. What we have said that we are against this return agreement because we think that the human rights situation are a big concern in Ethiopia. And it's hard to see whether or not, hard to see that the government of Ethiopia can actually make the human rights secured for the people who are sent back. But as you probably also know, is that there is a very, very tough NGO legislation within Ethiopia, and that international organizations are banned from supporting or engaging in any kind of political work within Ethiopia. So, and if an organization has more than 10% of their work, which is related to human rights, related to mobilization for elections, related to some kind of political issues, they will not be able to get the support from abroad, which makes this work very tough when you try to do something with the human rights within Ethiopia. So I think you understand why I'm saying this, because it's very tough, and it's a good thing that NOAS, of course, has sent some people down to Ethiopia to look at the situation, even though it's hard to actually get a good picture of the situation, staying there for a short period of time. But even though it's good to get new voices to describe the situation. Thank you.
So one short comment when it comes to former refugee groups. Actually, in the Palestinian camp, they've had a lot of Chilean supporters and people who came here as refugees, as children of refugees, and coming with us when they were small. And I think that was really the first and only time that I saw any political activism from any of these groups. So, but at least it shows that there is a potential. Not everyone only wants to carry on with their lives. Some also want to work politically. And they are very strong, at least activist supporters of the camp, some of the strongest. So I think there's a huge unused potential there. And thank you for that idea. And I think we'll probably take you up on it. Yeah.
Okay. Anything more? Okay, then I think we just say...
Should we just answer then?
I just wanted to say that what you're telling about Ethiopia tells everything about what not the truth, but the government tells about the security of the Ethiopians returning, but that was really too obvious.
If I can, I can say something about Eritrea, because we have not a program in Eritrea, so it's easy to talk about that. I have been living myself in Eritrea for 2 years, and I've been, unfortunately, phasing out 2 different programs for different NGOs because they are not allowed to monitor the work by the Eritrean government. And the trouble also is that foreigners are not allowed to leave the capital. You have to apply in beforehand, probably around 10 days in beforehand, and you will not be able to travel where you want in Eritrea. When the Norwegian delegation went down to Asmara to look at the situation in Asmara in Eritrea, they were in Asmara. And if you ever go to Eritrea, the experience of staying in Asmara is similar to an experience in staying in an Italian village, Italian city, Italian town maybe. It's built by the Italians and it still feels Italian. The food is Italian, the coffee is Italian, everything is Italian. It feels like to be in a small Italian town. And the situation in the rest of Eritrea is nowhere similar to the situation in Asmara at all. So when the Norwegian government entered into discussions with the Eritrean government about return agreement, then they would only know the situation in Asmara. And the situation in Asmara is very nice. It's a good place to actually go as a tourist as well. But for the rest of the country, and the knowledge by the people living in other places in the country, is something totally different. Because the people in Asmara, they will know what's happening. They will check the internet, they will read the news, while the people in the rest of Eritrea will not know anything. So in some paradoxical way that the government has support in the rest of the country, but not in the capital, yeah? So just to go into agreements with a government that don't respect human rights, don't respect the rule of law, they don't have a national parliament, they have a lot of prisoners inside Asmara. Just to think about the idea to launch an agreement with a government like that is just unthinkable. And we don't think it will ever happen. I tried to get agreements with the government of Eritrea to give them money to do good things in Eritrea. but they will not sign the agreement and not let us monitor the programs because they will have full control of Eritrea. So to go into an agreement when you try to mention human rights in the agreements, I think that will be a very, very far shot. It probably shows that the discussion about an agreement, a return forced agreement with Eritrea, is just a signal. A signal to Eritreans probably living in Greece and thinking about which country in Europe do I want to go. So, yeah.
Just a question about how you feel that the collaboration between all these new activists and all these organizations working with this, what kind of potential it is to collaborate further, or how the collaboration is now.
The collaboration was very good with Papilla's campaign. It was difficult diplomatic work that Rune Bergelsen and Jon Ole Martinsen were instrumental in achieving. And so that was a very good cooperation. The campaign is not as active as it used to be right now, and but the coalition, so to speak, still exists, and we should use this whenever it is necessary. I think, in general, it's fair to say that the cooperation between NGOs in Norway could be better, and we could be better at looking at where our different strengths and how to pull together. Some of us are good at it. We have a good cooperation with Norsk Folkehjelp, for example. But in other situations, it's not that easy. And like you heard here from the three presentations and how we talk, we have different approaches. We have different work tasks, really. I mean, we at the center, we don't do any casework. We only look at, maybe we take some extreme cases where people are at the end of the rope, and we are helping with, we're working with those as well with Ethiopian omgjøringsbegjæringer, and so sometimes we do casework, but this is not, I guess we were the flamboyant ones that Ann-Magrit was referring to, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think we certainly could be better at working together. But I think one thing is the NGOs, but as I said in my introduction, it's also to work with other groups and be very open. I mean, if someone wants to do something, I mean, give out information, help to connect people to politicians, to whoever, whatever resources they need. I think we should be really grateful whenever there's a new initiative, whenever there's a new supporter, because we really need to be as many people as we can. There's not enough people working on this field at all.
I just can say that I totally agree with what Kari and Helene said. We have different roles, but it's very important that we put our forces together when it comes to these issues. And you know, the paperless, what do we ever call it in English?
I don't know.
Undocumented immigrants. Yeah, the campaign has shown that we have some great force together. And also, it depends on where you speak. You know, when I speak here, it's probably not a problem being from Norwegian People's Aid. But if I speak with the people being members of, for example, some of the parties on the right side in Norway, they will interpret most of the things I say in terms of we having a relation to the labor movement in Norway. We have a relation to to some of the parties on the left side. So probably like a parliamentarian from Høyre in Norway would disagree on most of the things I say because of our background. So, but even though I could have the same speech as the bishop you were referring to, and he will not disagree when you have the speech from the bishop. So that's why it's so important that when it comes to this policy, because we are not so many, at least when it comes to the parliament, we have 3 political parties basically supporting us, the rest...
2.5.
2.5, yeah. 3 on a good day, yeah. So we need to be many, and we need to be strong from the civil society to reach forward in these cases.
I think also the church throughout history has been very important, and I mean all the bishops, for example, support the Papillus campaign, and it's strong. It's really strong that you have that kind of support.
Okay. No more questions? Okay, I think we just say thank you. And the next talk is at 2 o'clock. Probably not. We'll come back then.